Angry Birds itself is a game with a smart combination of well-understood gameplay mechanics, support for new technology, great UX, and brilliant characters and sound. But perhaps the core reason for Angry Birds' success was probably the beautifully tactile manner in which it took the physics trajectory gameplay of Flash browser games such as Crush the Castle and implemented it on new touchscreen mobile devices such as the Apple iPhone and Nokia N900. Just pull back and fire. 2003. It all started in 2003 when three young crazy-about-computer games students attended the University of Technology in Helsinki. Kim Dykert, Niked Head, and Jarno Vachveinen founded a company under the name Raludand. The young team had recently won first place in a competition sponsored by Hewlett-Packard and Nokia with their multiplayer game called The King of the Cabbage World. The main business activity of the venture was mobile game development. 2005. 2 years later, in 2005, their company arranged its first financial injection from business angels, and its name was changed to Rovio Mobile Limited. 2009. Rovio only had enough money to make one game. It was 2009. As the company's sole designer, I had to start coming up with ideas. I've always been keen on drawing animals, so I sat at my computer and drew a bunch of birds, giving them beaks, a rounded shape, and angry eyebrows. I had this idea of an angry flock of birds running around destroying things, said designer Jaakko Isalo. In 2009, Angry Birds was just the next game under development in Rovio Mobile. Nobody could have predicted the huge success that the game was about to bring. At the time, Rovio was mainly working as a subcontractor for big games in this sector, like Electronic Arts, but the management wanted their big project. So the external tasks were reduced, and the young team consisting of 25 people started searching for the big idea that would make them independent. After some brainstorming sessions and many ideas discussed, a sketch of a bird with a bad face was the thing that caught the attention of the group the most. Everybody was simply charmed by the wingless bird, so they decided to make a gameplay for it. This is how the start of Angry Birds was put. Nearly 50% of the working power was allocated for the project. After several months of hard work, the first version of the game was released on the Apple iOS platform through the App Store in December 2009, and the chain reaction had begun. Just after a few days, the game became #1 in Finland. 2010. Angry Birds conquered the UK at the end of February 2010. It reached first place in the US. By October 2010, the game had sold 12 million copies on the Apple App Store. People just became crazy about the game, and the downloads were exponentially growing. Initially, the game was developed only for iPhone, but soon it became available for Android OS and some other platforms. This caused another explosion in popularity. Developers started to develop an Android version of the game. They observed that Android had many different configurations. The combinations of software versions, processing speed, and even the user interfaces were significantly larger than the iOS version. The team then settled on a minimum set of requirements, even though that left nearly 30 types of Android phones unable to run the game, including some newly released devices. On October 15, 2010, the game was launched for Android devices, and the developers then started porting the games to other devices. The game's beta for Android hit more than 1 million downloads in 3 weeks. The game has a limited free version and a fully functional paid one. To get the full game, you need to pay a small fee of 99 cents. This might seem cheap, but if you think about millions of downloads, the picture changes. Also, this amount of money is probably something you won't think much about, and you'll spend it with pleasure. Having in mind that you get a full and legal version of one of the most wanted games, this is how so many players just bought it. The second version of the game, Angry Birds Seasons, was released in October 2010. It has many new levels and gameplay. 2011. Angry Birds Rio. After the huge success of the first 2 editions, this was very much expected. It was released in March 2011 and has many new levels with higher difficulty, better graphics, and gameplay. The game was marketed with the popular film Rio. Angry Birds Space. This time, the action is in space. The developers have done a wonderful job again, creating many new levels and some different rules. This time, the players should be careful because the gravitation of the planets influences the trajectory of the birds. This version was launched on the 22nd of March 2011. The game has been downloaded 2.5 billion times by 1.7 billion smartphone users globally. These users have thrown 600 billion birds collectively and earned 150 billion stars across all Angry Birds games. By the end of 2011, 300 million minutes of the game were played daily. Did you enjoy playing Angry Birds as well? Which Angry Birds version was your favorite? Let us know in the comments section below. 2012, Angry Birds Star Wars. This was the latest version of the game, launched a few months ago on the 8th of October 2012. Here, the birds are brave Jedis and the piggies are the Empire. The version is in partnership with the trilogy of George Lucas' Star Wars. Many of the birds have new powers never before seen. Angry Birds Friends and Angry Birds Space were released in 2012. A spin-off was also released in the same year called Bad Piggies. 2013. On the 25th of December 2013, the Angry Birds game was downloaded around 8 million times. Many think that this was because lots of people received a smartphone as a Christmas gift. Since the release of the game, the downloads have reached 500 million. According to The Guardian, in 2013, Rovio's growth stalled and revenue grew by only 2.5% year-on-year. The company reported revenues of 156 million euros or 128.4 million pounds for 2013 compared to 2012's 152.2 million euros, which represented more than double the 75.6 million euros that Angry Birds made in 2011. Angry Birds Star Wars 2 and Angry Birds Go were also released in 2013. 2014. Angry Birds Epic and Angry Birds Transformers were released in 2014. A spin-off was also introduced called Angry Birds Stella. 2015. In 2015, Angry Birds Under Pigstruction and a spin-off called Angry Birds Stella Pop were released. 2016. On June 30th, 2016, Rovio and Angry Birds Nest made a post where they were giving the instructions to download a new game, Angry Birds TNT. Registered Angry Birds nesters who commented on the post and had an iOS device would get an email from the developers on July 11, 2016. Afterward, the member had to follow the instructions given in the email, which was downloading the Test Flight app and registering the code TNT on it. The game would then start to download. The beta started the same day. The app's name was AB Beta. The beta had several differences from the final game. The game received an update, and the post was also updated to allow more users to try the beta. The update included several corrections and new designs for the birds. It was not possible to save progress from it. The beta was closed on August 3, 2016, and the game was released for a soft launch on August 17, 2016 in Hong Kong, with a new name and other various changes. The game was released in more countries in October 2016. 2017. A trailer was released on May 24, 2017, announcing the game's launch. Users who pre-registered would get a free starter pack worth $7.99. The game officially launched worldwide on June 15, 2017. Promotions for the game were made in Rovio's other games, with the Angry Birds Evolution Spell Week in Angry Birds 2 and a tournament in Angry Birds Friends. 2019. In April 2019, the game was unlisted in the app stores but came back and received a new update. Afterward, it was then unlisted again in July 2019. Rovio Entertainment Corporation stated that they had removed the games for testing purposes, but never explained what the test was. Later, this statement was changed to say that the game was removed because Rovio did not want to keep updating the game. 2021. In June 2021, it was announced by Rovio on Twitter that efforts were going to be made to bring some of the original Angry Birds games back to online stores sometime in the future. Later in November, Rovio announced that work had already begun for a recreation of the game using Unity instead of their game engine. It features the same style as the original version, with small gameplay improvements and incorporating cloud saving. The recreation was slated for an early 2022 release, and unlike the original version, it's a premium title, thus having no ads. The remake was later announced to be called Rovio Classics Angry Birds and released on March 31, 2022. Visit Evolution Zone for more Evolution content.